Welcome to another episode of Courageous Healing. I am the producer and co host, Victor Escalante. Joining me in the studio today is Adele George. Adele, welcome.
So happy to be here. Can't wait to just sit here and chat with you today.
How are you doing today?
I'm doing good. The weather's beautiful and it's a great day. It's
Did,
absolutely a great day.
did you survive Mardi Gras?
Yes. Not really my thing. I stay home, but I do watch it from afar and New Orleans is wonderful. I mean, New Orleans has had a really amazing year this year. We've had, of course, we had the terrorist attack, which was very heartbreaking, but we've had
Yes.
the Sugar Bowl, we had the Super Bowl, and we went right out of the Super Bowl straight into Mardi Gras. So it's been quite an eventful first 3 months of the year.
I
So we're
imagine.
ready for Lent.
What are we going to be talking about today, Adele?
So the topic that I want to talk about today is something that I've been thinking a lot about, Victor. I think we need to talk about self-love and confidence after trauma. I mean, we need to really kind of talk about, because one of the things is when you go into a relationship, you don't really have that typically when you fall into some sort of traumatic relationship or an abusive relationship, self-esteem, self-worth is lacking. Your identity doesn't even exist. Learning self-love and building confidence after trauma will help you find the joy after an abusive relationship, which ultimately will help you live the life you love.
Absolutely. Totally. I totally concur. So, talk to us about self love. What is your understanding or definition of self love, Adele? Let's compare notes.
Self-love is a really interesting topic because I really feel like it's also one of those things that's a bit of a buzzword.
Hmm.
We talk a lot, you hear a lot of people talking about how you need to love yourself before you can love someone else and all of this, but I think self-love means self-acceptance. And what I
Yeah.
mean by that is warts and all, just accepting yourself for who you are, accepting your body, your mental health, the state of being that you are in this very moment, and just showering yourself with love. And just and it takes practice. It's not something that's easy to do, and it's not something that can be done quickly in many cases, but it is something that I think is important because what happens when you end up having self-love in my case is you start to build boundaries and
Yeah.
you start to build confidence in a way that you don't have to deliberately do it because your standards are changing, because your identity is evolving. Because when you realize that I'm a worthy person and I love myself enough to know that I deserve to be in a healthy relationship. I deserve to be with quality. I deserve to have quality friends. And I deserve to be in a position where people are going to take me seriously. And we're talking about employment. Because a lot of times when they get out of a traumatic relationship, sometimes they find themselves in terrible work environments or they have friends that aren't supportive. So sometimes you have to stop and take stock in your life and really say, from this moment forward, this is who I am and I love myself and I want something better for myself.
I want to ask you something, Adele. Typically, when victims come out of a very abusive relationship, they have the victimizer's voice in their head from all the negative, toxic messages that they received. Did you find yourself repeating some of those negative things that Chad, your ex-husband, would say to you in the
Oh,
relationship?
absolutely. Absolutely. And that's one of the things that you really have to understand and some of the things that we'll actually talk about quite a bit this year
Yeah.
is understanding that those voices are not your voice. Those voices are not you. And so it's really learning that through the journey of discovering yourself and your individuality, you start to realize that you aren't the person that they painted you to be.
Yes. Sometimes, in my experience, Adele, it's the mother's voice. Why the mother? because that's the one that the child growing up spent the most time with. And so sometimes that critical inner voice is the mother's voice. And so you have to stop and listen to whose voice it is. And sometimes it's okay, even okay, to talk to that inner critic and say, what is it that you want from me?
Right.
Because sometimes if you had a very negative, toxic parent, the parent with the best of intentions was trying to get you to do better, but the way that she communicated with you was not conducive for you to do better. If anything, it just demoralized you and sapped your self esteem out of you. So if the voice answers, "I'm just trying to get you to do better," it's like, okay, got it. Thank you. Can you talk to me in an encouraging way? And you'll be surprised how that inner critic turns into an ally of yours.
Exactly, and the thing is you have to listen to the sound of the voice. You have to make sure that you're not masking that voice as your own, and
Yes,
that you've not turned that voice onto yourself, and that you realize that whoever that voice is coming from and whoever that is actually not you, like, being so harsh and harmful to yourself. I really think that, for me, and I definitely agree with you. Challenge the voice, talk to the voice. The voice is, it sounds a little wacky, but talk to the voice. The other thing too, though, and I want to let everybody know, is the voice dies down as your confidence builds.
yes,
And the voice could eventually go away because it no longer has an anchor in you. And that's something that is in the process of healing is working. As you start to feel better, these things start to fade, and you really have to be okay with disconnecting from them and letting them go. You don't need to take them along with you.
that's correct. In the field of positive intelligence, Adele, based upon, I want to say like 50,000 cases that the research came from, they were able to identify 10 saboteurs. And the primary one that we carry is an inner judge that judges you, judges others, and judges life circumstances for you. So it's important to understand that these saboteurs, we could compile them all together and name it the ego. These defense mechanisms is what helped you to survive, to grow up, so that you wouldn't be distracted by something that was dangerous. But what happens is once we grow up, then those saboteurs never go away until you begin to dismantle them one by one. And just like you said, Adele, is the chatter, the mental chatter, and all those voices begin to die down once we find our joy.
Yeah.
When you are happy and laughing, there's no space for that inner critic. When you are very intentional in the way that you live your life, there's no room for that inner critic because again, you're busy, you're happy, you're joyful, you're full of spirit, and in that joyful spirit, there is no shadows that come from those inner critics.
Yes, and trust your inner knowing. Trust that you're a better person, and trust that when you have a voice in your head that's telling you something's wrong with you, you could have done a better job, you could have done this, or you should have done that, and whatever the case may be, you know, trust that you are a better person than that, and know that this voice and these things that are being said to you or that have been said to you are not you. And I like to use the phrase, watch who you point your finger at because you got 3 pointing right back at you.
Yeah,
A lot of abusers, when they come in and they accuse you of something, and I'm not necessarily talking about extramarital affairs and things like that. I'm just talking about your being and your behavior, and they say you're lazy, you don't do anything, you don't know how to cook, you don't know. You're worthless and stuff like that. Remember, when they're pointing their finger, they have 3 of them pointing right back at them.
Yes. I tell
It's
clients, consider the source. Consider the source. Is like, who set them up as the ultimate authority of what you are or you are not when they are not even following their own measurements.
right. You know,
Always they're measuring you. Yeah.
yeah, I was told, I was like, "Why are you so unhappy? You're such an unhappy person. You're absolutely miserable." And I'm sitting there in the middle of this conversation doing an internal self-assessment, not understanding I'm not unhappy. I'm not a miserable person. Like, I don't know what you're talking about. And it was years later that I heard that phrase and I went, "Oh, yeah, that makes a lot of sense." And it
They,
really opens up
yeah,
a lot.
they were projecting onto you.
And that's important. And that's important when it comes to this. I think it's really important to understand that when people project, we look, Victor and I have been through our healing processes. That doesn't mean we don't project.
Yeah.
We might project a ton of love on you, and we might just want to project our healing because that's our passion, but we still project. It's just that,
Yeah.
a person can be malicious in what they're projecting onto you. And when you start to realize when a person accuses you of something that you're not doing, the likelihood of consider the source or the 3 fingers that are pointing right back at them. Say one of those to yourself and see how that measures up against what they're saying. And if it really is that you're not unhappy or you're not cheating or you're not doing the things that they say that you're doing, then you start to realize this is not about you. It's about them.
Sure. Your words reminded me, Adele, of that case that I worked on yesterday that you set in on of that young girl, 20-year-old girl that had a nagging mother constantly nagging and putting her down. And again, I covered with her how it's necessary to be a defender of ourselves in situations where we need a defender and no one is there. We need to defend ourselves. We need
Yes.
to put healthy boundaries, not being disrespectful to escalate the problem, but again, saying, please don't talk to me like that. Just please just tell me what it is that you want me to do. As
Mhm.
opposed to one's constant nag after another that again demoralizes you, destroys your self-esteem.
Well, you mentioned that, and I was watching a clip from one of Mel Robbins's podcasts the other day, and I forget at this point who the gentleman was that she interviewed because I would love to give him credit, but I probably have to go dig it up. And she was talking to him about a narcissist, like, how do you handle a narcissist? How do you confront a narcissist when they're coming at you and they're talking about stuff? Again, this is kind of that narcissism type thing. And you look at them and when they're saying they're recounting something back to you in order to try to make you the bad guy, you can literally look at them and say, "That's not how I remember this.
Yeah,
That's not how I remember this experience." And it disarms them because that means that you're taking up for your own experience and you're taking up and saying, "That's not how I remember this happening. That's not what happened," or something to that effect. But just basically saying, "That's not how I remember this," is a way of standing in your truth and standing in who you are and building your confidence. And look, I understand it's hard. It's hard to build confidence at times. I was an only child, so I didn't grow up with siblings that I argued with. So arguing and fighting and standing up for myself was just not in my makeup. So I just didn't grow up primed. I had a friend who constantly fought with her brothers. And I just that I didn't get it. How could she fight with them and then talk to them 5 minutes later like nothing was going on? But what I learned is what I realized as an adult was that I don't know how to argue. I didn't grow up in an environment where I argued with people, where I had to defend myself. So when I was put in situations where I needed to defend myself because things were serious, they were serious and they were abusive, I didn't know what to do.
yeah. And no
So
point of reference. You weren't battle tested for life. How to deal with criticisms and how to deal with toxic situations.
And having the ability to argue and stand up for yourself to a
Yeah.
certain degree
Yeah.
gives you confidence. It's a
Yes.
confidence builder when you can stand in your place and you can say no, period. You can just
Yeah.
have to say no. No is no is a sentence.
Hadn't thought about that, but you're right. No
A
is a
sentence.
sentence.
No is
Remember that,
a sentence.
guys. So, Adele, your journey of self love has been long and arduous. Talk to us about what that was like for you.
It was it was a process of discovery for me. It took me a long time to not hear those voices, and even when I got to the point that I understood that those voices weren't mine, I still heard them, and they were still there. And I was so young when this happened to me. I mean, I was 22, 23, almost
Yes.
23 years old when this
Yeah.
happened to me that I didn't even know who I was to begin with. So, in order where most kids in their 20s are coming out of college, going finding new jobs and finding themselves and experiencing the world, I'm having to crawl out from under abuse and I'm having to crawl out and figure out what do I do now? And so everybody's got advice. Everybody's got a suggestion, but not every suggestion and not every piece of advice is advice and suggestions that you should take. And you need to, and it's hard when you're in your 20s to have discernment to understand that. So that's why therapy was so important for me was because I was not only learning how to handle, like, the PTSD and navigate the abuse and the effects of that, but I was also learning who I was. Who was I in this world that I had to navigate? And it took me a long time. It took me a long time, but the journey was worth it.
Okay. So, what are some tips that practical tips that our listeners can act upon, Adele, after trauma to discover self love in this long journey? It's a journey for life because again, sometimes you will relapse into dark spaces, but you got to keep going forward because you can never return back to the way you used to be once you start on this process of self-love and healing. So what are some practical doable steps?
First thing that's practical is just taking care of yourself.
Yes.
And I don't necessarily mean eating healthy foods and dieting and exercise. I mean taking care of yourself. Like, if you're tired, rest. Get rest. And,
Treat yourself as your best friend.
yes, nourish yourself. Take those bubble baths, take those long hot showers. Just give yourself the space in the room to say no when you don't want to. And if you don't want to go out with your friends and you don't want to go to dinner with your friends, say no. Take the time for yourself. Secondly, is start focusing on doing things that you enjoy. I'm talking about your job. You're going to
Yes.
be at your job 2/3 of the week, if not more. So find a job that you will enjoy to be around people that are fun, that are funny, a job that you have a good time at, something that you can learn, something that you can grow with. Doesn't have to be your career, and it doesn't have to be the place where you work for the rest of your life, but just some place that you know that when you wake up in the morning, you don't mind getting up and getting dressed and going to work. Because trust me, not all of us, there's some days we don't want to go to work, but enjoying what you do is really nice. Having good supportive people around you is really nice. Being able to make friends with the people that you work with too. Build some really solid friendships. You don't need to have a group of 25 people in your life. One or two really strong, solid friendships is great. The other thing that I recommend, though I find that nowadays some people tend to go in a different direction, is I recommend engaging in things that are fun and funny. Go watch funny comedy movies. Go do things that are fun. Try not to take in anything that's traumatic. Because for a long time, Victor, I didn't watch action movies. I didn't watch anything that was a drama, like even a hospital drama on TV. I didn't do anything that was heavy. Only thing
Mhm.
I did was things that were happy, that were good for my spirit, that made me laugh, that brought me joy. And as a matter of fact, speaking of joy, on Saturday morning, I turned on the TV and for some reason it was on the Cartoon Network. I don't know how. And one of the old Scooby Doo's from when I was a kid was on. And little things like that that just brought me back and made me just feel so happy.
You're listening to Courageous Healing Podcast. We'll be right back.
Looking for the perfect soundtrack to bring your project to life? Meet Roy D. Haston, an experienced composer who creates captivating music for films, commercials, and live events. From emotional scores to upbeat, energetic tracks, Roy's compositions add depth and emotion to every story. His unique soundscapes elevate your project and leave a lasting impression. Visit roydhaston.com and discover how Roy's music can transform your next project into something unforgettable. And thank you, Roy, for your original music for our Courageous Healing podcast.
We now return you to the Courageous Healing Podcast.
And find those little things that bring you joy. Buy your favorite food, eat ice cream, do the little things that make you happy, that show you, like, that blossom your heart. I know today a lot of people like to listen to those the darker podcasts, like the murder mystery podcasts and things like that, and they find relaxation and enjoyment from it. Unfortunately, there is some research out there that does indicate that these people are just trauma addicts and that they like to hear things that have to do with trauma. But find things that are entertaining. I would suggest to stay away from stuff like that because it's heavy. So find things that are light, things that are enjoyable. What's your favorite movie? Make sure you have it on repeat. Watch it over and over again. For me, it was Rocky. There was nothing better than Rocky because Rocky, to me, is a love story and it's an underdog story. So to watch a movie like that where and I know that some of the it's a timeless movie because it's he prevails. And he gets the girl. You don't have to watch the whole just the first one. Find a movie that, a good rom-com, something that makes you laugh and brings and opens your heart. Just stay and keep it simple and keep it, just if you're feeling like you're not happy or you're feeling like, those voices are talking to you, just go find something, fun and sweet and wonderful. Go eat your favorite food, go get some ice cream. Whatever little thing at that moment can bring you a little slice of joy can really make it so that your heart and your emotions start to bloom. And as those bloom, they take over. And when they take over, the voices die because your confidence builds.
Yeah. I would add, Adele, that there's a part of you that is intact, that was never affected by any kind of trauma. The most horrific trauma that you ever went through, it's like there's an intact part of you. Call it your spirit, call it your soul, whatever you want to call it. Get in touch with that part of you that is still childlike and still wonders to see a beautiful sunset or a sunrise. Get in touch with that part of yourself that can start to be your guide as far as what you need to do in this healing journey.
Abs
And again, confidence comes from developing skills. So develop a skill for something. Take classes. Take up a hobby. Develop something that you can master, so that again you can start to develop the momentum, but to develop confidence in yourself.
Absolutely. And you know what, Victor? You know what I used to do too, just sitting here thinking about it? I used to get in my car and go for a drive. I used to
Yeah.
just stretch my legs, go drive, pick a place that's like an hour or two away, go for a drive and just stretch my legs. A good road trip will just and getting you out of the house. That's another thing. Get out the house. Go for a
Yeah.
walk outside.
You,
You know,
you also took up photography, if I remember correctly, didn't you?
I did for a little while, yeah.
Yeah.
Just find a fun little hobby. Find some fun, good, funny books to read. Some stuff that's lighthearted. Just try to, just try to stay away from anything heavy for a while.
Y-
Give yourself a good 2 or 3 months of just taking in things that bring you pure joy. It doesn't mean that things aren't going to go wrong. You're not going to have a bad day. Something at work's going to go wrong. I mean, we all have bad days, but just still consume things that bring you happiness, and you're going to feel it. You're going to feel it in your heart, and you're going to feel it in your chest, where you're going to feel that things are going to expand and you're going to feel the warmth. And once you learn what that is and you learn what brings you joy, then you put it on repeat. And that's a tool that you can master that will last you a lifetime.
What would you say to victims coming out of an abusive relationship, Adele, that they jump quickly into another relationship that unfortunately ends up being a repeat of the previous one? What would you say about taking your time after coming out of an abusive relationship?
After coming out of an abusive relationship, it's very common. It's not uncommon for women, even, a few years after they've been out of a relationship, to go into another abusive relationship, because there's still some lack of self-awareness. My therapist often said their picker is off. They're still picking the wrong environment. So I think it's really important, if you're coming out of an abusive relationship, to really find that source of healing and that therapy in at the same time. Because if you're still finding the wrong people, then you still have some work to do for yourself, on yourself, not for yourself,
Yes.
on yourself. So whether it's, I mean, I would suggest that you don't, but I mean, obviously, that's not, we can't interfere with fate and stuff like that. But just know that there's that propensity to repeat, to put yourself on repeat, if you have not fully explored and fully digested what happened to you.
Adele, did you journal as the relationship with Chad ended? Did your therapist recommend journaling?
I did journal. I did journal. I didn't journal a lot. I journal more now. I didn't journal a lot, but I did. And as a matter of fact, I burned them all.
Yeah, good for you.
Yeah.
I recommend that people journal because when they're having a bad day and they write about everything that they're thinking and feeling, the next day they look back at that and they wonder, is like, what was I going through? For them to understand that their thoughts is not who they are, that is just a part of them that is running wild, especially when the emotions are running wild.
Mm.
So I strongly recommend that you journal so that you can begin to stalk your thoughts and your feelings, so that you develop some sort of disciplines. You develop that third position perspective to look at yourself in light of what you've been going through, and begin to notice what are the themes, what are the patterns, so that maybe you can discuss this with a therapist.
Oh, absolutely. I think that's a wonderful idea. I mean, I think that journaling is something that by all means can help. I have journals almost in every room of my house. And I think I even have one in my car. Like, I have them everywhere. And if you don't feel like journaling, voice record yourself.
True.
I mean, we have a ton of these things today. You can
Yeah.
you can record you can talk to yourself. The other thing you can do that's kind of like journaling, is, if you're really needing somebody to talk to and there's nobody that you can get a hold of right then at that moment, set up a chair across from you and pretend that your best friend's in the chair or pretend that somebody, Oprah Winfrey for all you care, pretend that someone is in that chair and have a conversation with them. Clear it out of your brain.
Yes, that's a Gestalt therapy technique, by the way, that you're describing, Adele, which works very well because, again, you're able to compartmentalize thoughts and feelings by putting up another chair there in front of you. And sometimes you can switch chairs. It's like pretend that you are your best friend giving advice to that you that is sitting across from you.
Yeah. Yeah, and it does, and it works, because
Yeah.
it use your imagination, and that's the other thing too. Imagination is really big in the healing process.
It is because what you imagine, what the energy is going to flow to what you imagine.
Mm.
So if you tend to catastrophize everything, then you're going to have a very chaotic life. But if you begin to focus on healing, having peaceful thoughts, having visualizing a new and improved you day by day, again, that's where the energy is going to flow. And that's where divine providence moves in and brings you the right people, the book, the movie, the song, whatever it is that you're needing, you're not alone.
Mm.
Especially pray to God out loud. Do it out loud because when you do, you end up aligning your three bodies: the physical, the emotional, the mental, and the etheric. It's actually four bodies. The four bodies align, and your message gets through to God
Mm.
when you do that.
It's a journey. Let me just say this, life in general is a journey.
Yes.
So, the trauma that has happened to you is part of your journey. It's your job to heal from it, but it's also your job to understand that life is never just gonna be glitter and rainbows. Life is life. Life lifes, and you have to exist in it. The best thing you can do is build your confidence, build your self-love so that you can navigate, so that you have the tools to navigate life, so that life doesn't keep knocking you down.
You know where my mind went to with your comment, Adele? The movie City of Angels. One of the characters is an angel, and he chose to leave that space, that other dimension, to be human, to experience love and all the emotions that go with being human. It's like we really are privileged to be in a physical body to go through the entire range of emotions. We can experience up to 750 different emotions, and that is a privilege only humans can experience because angels do not go through that. Spirit beings do not go through that. So just because you experience one end of the spectrum, there is the other end of the spectrum for you to learn to experience.
Yep, and I think one of the first skills that you can definitely take is learning how not to catastrophize.
Yes.
And if you're gonna build your self-love and you're gonna build your self-confidence, you have to go the opposite direction of catastrophizing. You can't, like, sit here and go, "Oh my god, I screwed up. I screwed this up, so tomorrow when I'm gonna go into work, I'm gonna get fired and everybody's gonna hate me and the client's gonna lose and and just watch the whole thing go down like
Yeah.
this." You
Yeah.
can't. You can't catastrophize. You have to know that, okay, yeah, you screwed something up, then life is going to go on. You take the punch you need to take on the chin and then you move on. However, it may not be as bad as what you're thinking, and it likely isn't.
Yeah.
We have a way of making things as humans, making things hard for ourselves. And look, Victor and I will be the first to tell you that we do it to ourselves too. However, we have the ability to catch it.
We've done that. We're telling you from personal experience that some were very skilled, some were not so skilled, but again, it helped to some extent to have a neutral, compassionate observer of whatever it was that I was going through.
Absolutely. I think that's absolutely so important. And I think the thing is that we really do understand that life is a journey and it's going to be okay.
The chances of you improving are 100%.
Right. Yeah, exactly. I mean, I'm looking back at when I struggled with PTSD. Again, I was in my early 20s. And I under what I ended up doing was developing a skill set on how to understand myself. So then when I noticed what was my responses to my PTSD, after 6 months to a year of understanding how I did it, then I go, "Okay, I'm not liking the way that I feel today. I need to go take a nap." Or, "I'm not liking the way I feel today. I need to go talk to somebody." Or, this is triggering. I need to leave." I rented a movie one day, not freaking knowing. I don't even remember the name of the movie. Oh, Hostage of all movies. I rented
Okay.
a movie called Hostage, and I started watching it, and 3 minutes into the movie, I went, "Nope," turned it off. I could not watch it because I knew what was coming and I knew what was happening. I knew it was gonna happen from the name of the movie, and I questioned as to even why I rented it. And that was when I kinda went and understood, I can't watch this stuff right now.
Yeah.
I
That's
even
developing the awareness. Your awareness begin to grow, and it is through that awareness. Once you reach a certain level of awareness, you can never lose it. That's one of the beauties of personal growth and healing is that as you keep going and developing greater awareness, you start growing and you start healing.
Yeah, exactly, and exactly, that's it. That's exactly it because, going back to the movie thing real quick, I actually I'm not in the military, I've never been affiliated with anybody in the military or anything like that. I watched Saving Private Ryan and the show, the first scene is very violent. I've never seen the full movie. I've
Yeah.
never seen the full movie because it was too traumatic for me to be able to see it. So I really do want to drive that point home. When you're asking for simple things, I want to drive that home. Don't put yourself in a situation where you're going to end up watching or participating in something that is going to be triggering to you.
Sure. Adele, I want to ask you one final question,
Okay.
and our time is going to be up here in a minute or so. What do you think of AI? Using AI as a healing buddy? I know of some people that are starting to use AI as almost like this imaginary partner. What do you think about using AI as a healing partner?
I don't think there's anything wrong with it as long as it doesn't replace humans and human touch.
I agree. Totally concur.
I Because you know what? If I'm feeling depressed and I wanna watch a movie, I can go to AI and I can say, "Hey, I am in a terrible mood today. I'm not feeling good. I wanna watch something that is absolutely hysterically funny, and
Yes.
I wanna find it on Netflix."
Yeah.
And I can get something.
Excellent use of AI,
Yeah,
because a lot of movies are not really listed when you're scrolling through there. I found that out recently.
yeah. So, I mean, if there's a way that you wanna distract yourself, what can I do? Like so I live in New Orleans or you live in Houston. So we can say, you know what? I need to get out the house today, AI. I want to do something I've never done. I'm in this part of Houston. Is there some place new that I can go eat? What's a new restaurant? What's a new experience? What museums are in town? What's going on so that you can get out the house? I think you can definitely use it. I think that though it doesn't replace human interaction and human touch.
Totally, totally. Find the balance. You can even ask AI, it's like, I'm feeling this way, or I'm feeling that way, or I've been through this, or I've been through that. What are some therapeutic modalities, or what is some avenues of therapy that I should be looking at? And again, it's a trusted advisor that again is not going to replace humans, but it could be a supplementary aid for your healing.
Absolutely. 100%.
Well, that's going to do it, Adele. We covered a lot of ground today.
I know. We have a lot to talk about.
So until next week, go out and have a great week, friends.
Bye, guys.